Right now, somewhere in America, there's a 32-year-old sitting in their Honda Civic in a Whole Foods parking lot, staring at their bank statement on their phone. 6 months ago, they hit $50,000 in their savings account for the first time in their life. They took a screenshot, they called their mum, they felt like they'd finally made it. Today, that account shows $47,200. They haven't had any emergencies, no medical bills, no car repairs, no job loss. Just 6 months of living like someone who has money. And here's the part that should terrify you. They have no idea how those $2,800 disappeared. It just evaporated. This person just discovered what I call the $50,000 trap. And statistically speaking, there's a 90% chance they'll never escape it. Not because they're not smart enough, not because they don't earn enough, but because they just crossed into the most dangerous financial territory in middle-class America. The zone where you have enough money to hurt yourself, but not enough to save yourself from your own decisions. My name is Fininvest Logic, and today I'm going to show you exactly how this trap works, why it captures nearly everyone who touches it, and the specific mathematical strategy that the other 10% use to break free forever. So hit that like button and let's dive in. Let me tell you about someone we'll call Sarah. Sarah is 29, makes $65,000 as a marketing coordinator, and she spent 3 years grinding to save her first $50,000. 3 years of meal prepping, driving a 2016 Corolla with 180,000 miles, and splitting Netflix passwords with her college roommates. 3 years of saying no to girls' trips and yes to overtime shifts. And when she finally hit that 5-figure milestone, something inside her brain quietly shifted. For the first time in her adult life, Sarah felt financially safe. And that feeling of safety triggered the most expensive cognitive bias in personal finance. Lifestyle inflation justified by false security. Within 2 months, Sarah had upgraded her life. She moved from a $1,200 studio to a $1,800 one-bedroom, because rent is an investment in quality of life. She started ordering DoorDash twice a week. She bought the $180 skincare routine. She got a gym membership at the nice place because health is wealth, right? Each individual decision made perfect sense. The problem is that Sarah had just increased her fixed expenses by $950 a month, nearly $12,000 a year. And here's the psychological trick that got her. None of it felt like spending, because she still had money in the bank. But Sarah had just made the classic $50,000 mistake. She confused having assets with having margin. She had $50,000 in cash, so she started living like someone who makes $50,000 more per year. And that math doesn't work, even if your brain thinks it does. 6 months later, Sarah's account showed $43,000 and dropping, not because of some catastrophic expense, but because she'd quietly shifted from saving $800 a month to spending $150 more than she earned. A $950 monthly swing that her lifestyle had absorbed so gradually, she barely noticed it happening. Now meet Sarah's coworker, Mike. Same company, same salary range, hit $50,000 around the same time. But Mike made a different choice. When his account hit 5 figures, he didn't see safety. He saw a weapon, a tool for making more money instead of funding a more expensive life. While Sarah was upgrading her apartment, Mike was calculating how much passive income $50,000 could generate. He put $40,000 into a diversified portfolio and kept $10,000 as an emergency fund. At a 7% return, that $40,000 was going to throw off about $2,800 a year in gains without him touching it. More importantly, Mike understood the difference between rich and wealthy. Rich is a big bank account. Wealthy is a big bank account that makes you more money while you sleep. And $50,000 is right at the threshold where you can choose which path you're going to take. When you have zero savings, your brain lives in scarcity mode. Every spending decision gets scrutinized because every dollar matters. But when you cross into 5 figures, your brain does something called mental accounting. It starts to separate your money into different psychological buckets. The problem is, your brain is terrible at maintaining those boundaries when they're only conceptual. When it's all sitting in the same checking account, your subconscious mind treats it like one big pool of "I'm fine" money. And "I'm fine" money gets spent on "I'm fine" things. This is why millionaires keep their money in different accounts, different investments, sometimes different banks entirely. Not because they're paranoid, but because they understand that their brain needs physical barriers to maintain mental barriers. Willpower is a terrible long-term strategy for wealth building. Most people who fall into the trap don't just lose the $50,000, they lose the habit that got them there. Sarah upgraded her identity. She went from someone who's building wealth to someone who has wealth. Except Sarah didn't have wealth. She had a head start that she mistook for a finish line. The data is shocking. According to a study by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, households with savings between $40,000 and $75,000 have some of the worst long-term wealth outcomes relative to their starting position. Not because they don't earn enough, but because this range triggers maximum lifestyle inflation with minimum financial education. People with $10,000 saved are still scared enough to be careful. People with $200,000 saved have enough to generate meaningful passive income. But people in the middle, they have just enough to get themselves in trouble. And once you've upgraded your lifestyle, you can't easily go backwards. So instead of adjusting her spending, Sarah adjusts her goals. $40,000 is still good. Then $35,000, then $30,000. This is why Warren Buffett, a man worth over $100 billion, still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. Not because he's cheap, but because he understands that lifestyle inflation is the enemy of compound interest. Every dollar you spend on an upgraded lifestyle is a dollar that can't work for you. As Buffett's business partner Charlie Munger once said, "The first rule of getting rich is never interrupt compounding unnecessarily." That $600 rent increase Sarah justified. Over 30 years at 7% returns, that's not $600 a month. It's $739,000 in opportunity cost. Sarah didn't rent a nicer apartment. She bought a $750,000 convenience. So how do you escape? Strategy number 1. Automate the split the moment you hit the milestone. I recommend what I call the 50-30-20ths rule for your first $50,000. $25,000 goes immediately into a high-yield savings account you never touch. $15,000 goes into a conservative investment portfolio. $10,000 stays liquid as your opportunity fund. Strategy number 2. Increase your automatic investments, not your automatic lifestyle. The moment you hit $50,000 should trigger an automatic increase in your investment contributions. If you were saving $500 a month, bump it to $600. Most people do the opposite. They think, now I can afford to save less and spend more. The 10% think, now I can build wealth faster. Strategy number 3. Calculate the real cost of every upgrade. That $600 rent increase isn't $600 at 7% over 30 years. It's $739,000. That daily $6 coffee isn't $6. Over 25 years, it's $178,000. That weekend trip to Miami isn't $1,200. It's $15,000 in future wealth. I'm not saying never enjoy your money. I'm saying understand what you're actually buying. Strategy number 4. Create artificial scarcity. You need to maintain the money mindset that got you to $50,000. Buffett gives himself an annual fun budget despite being worth billions. Set a monthly spending limit that's lower than what you can afford. Low enough that you have to think about purchases. Strategy number 5. Track net worth, not account balances. A high checking account balance is actually a sign of poor capital allocation. Money sitting in checking is money not working for you. Start tracking your net worth monthly. Include your investments, retirement accounts, possessions, minus your debts. Let's go back to Mike. 5 years later, Sarah is still hovering around $35,000, living paycheck to paycheck on her now $75,000 salary. Mike, meanwhile, has $180,000 in investments plus $15,000 in cash. His portfolio is now generating about $12,600 a year in passive income, which covers all those lifestyle upgrades Sarah borrowed from her future self to pay for. And here's the compound effect that matters. Mike is now psychologically wealthy, not just temporarily rich. He makes spending decisions from abundance. Sarah makes decisions from anxiety because she knows she's one emergency away from financial stress despite having a good salary. The $50,000 trap isn't really about the money. It's about the mindset. Let me be honest about who escapes this trap. People from families who built wealth tend to treat $50,000 like seed capital. People who are first-generation wealth builders tend to treat it like prize money. It's not intelligence or work ethic. It's inherited money mindset. If $50,000 feels like safety instead of opportunity, that doesn't make you wrong. But it means you have to work harder to override those instincts with systems. But what if I never even get to $50,000? Understanding wealth psychology before you need it is the most powerful financial education you can get. The patterns that destroy wealth at $50,000 are the same at $5,000 or $500,000. Save $1,000 a month and you'll hit $50,000 in just over 4 years. Save $500 a month and you'll get there in about 8 years. The timeline matters less than the habit. The $50,000 trap is preparation for every wealth milestone you'll ever hit. Hit $100,000, buy a nicer car. Hit $1 million, buy a nicer house. Every level has its own version. Master this pattern at $50,000, and you'll handle $500,000 correctly when it comes. So what's it going to be? Are you going to be part of the 90% who subsidize a lifestyle upgrade, or the 10% who build a wealth-generating machine? The choice you make in the next 30 days after hitting any significant savings milestone will determine your financial trajectory for the next 30 years. Choose wisely. If this breakdown got you thinking about building real wealth, I've put together a free masterclass on the exact strategies I use to turn savings into passive income. No get-rich-quick schemes, no crypto hype. Just the mathematical fundamentals. The link is in the description. Remember, I'm not a financial advisor. This content is for educational purposes only. But the math doesn't lie, and neither do the statistics. Master the $50,000 moment, and everything else becomes possible. Hit that subscribe button if this opened your eyes, and I'll see you in the next video. Wealth isn't about having money. It's about having money that makes more money. And that starts with your first $50,000 decision.